On July 22, 2026, two U.S. lawmakers sent a letter to Trade Representative Jamieson Greer about a rule most people have never heard of. The rule sits inside the North American Trade Agreement. It governs when governments may demand access to software source code and algorithms owned across the border. And now it has become part of a much larger fight over who gets to examine powerful AI systems before something goes wrong. Senator Elizabeth Warren and Representative Warren-Schakowsky argue that technology companies are using the review of the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement to seek stronger protections from regulatory scrutiny. Industry groups say the opposite risk deserves attention. Forced disclosure could expose valuable intellectual property and weaken cross-border AI services. Both concerns are real. But the argument becomes misleading unless we start with what the agreement actually says. Article 1916 does not simply lock every algorithm away until a formal government investigation begins. Its first paragraph says, "One USMCA country generally cannot demand the source code of software owned by a person from another member country as a condition for importing, distributing, selling, or using that software." That is a trade rule. It is designed to stop a government from saying, in effect, "Hand over your code or lose access to our market." The second paragraph creates an important exception. A regulator or judicial authority may require source code or an algorithm to be preserved and made available for a specific investigation, inspection, examination, enforcement action, or judicial proceeding. The agreement also requires safeguards against unauthorized disclosure. That distinction matters. The present rule is not absolute secrecy, and its exception is broader than one kind of formal investigation. But access still has to be connected to a specific regulatory or legal process. Warren and Schakowsky want negotiators to ensure that regulators can obtain key information about AI models, even when no formal probe is already underway. This is the real threshold dispute. Should regulators need a specific case before they can look inside a high-impact system? Or should some forms of oversight be allowed earlier? Reuters reported on July 23 that Warren accused major AI companies of lobbying the administration to limit transparency rules in the Trade Pact. Her letter, also signed by Schakowsky, urges Greer to reject efforts that could make AI algorithms and source code harder for regulators to examine. The lawmakers are not asking for companies to publish proprietary code on the internet. Their argument is about confidential access by authorized government bodies. They believe regulators may need that access to evaluate systems before a proven harm produces a lawsuit or enforcement action. Industry groups frame the problem differently. In an October 2025 submission cited by Reuters, the Computer and Communications Industry Association described forced disclosure of source code, algorithms, model weights, and training data as a threat to the cross-border supply of AI services. The association represents major technology companies, including Google and Meta. In a separate submission that month, the Telecommunications Industry Association argued that the United States should push back against attempts by China and other governments to mandate source code disclosure. Its members include Apple and Amazon Web Services. Those warnings should not be dismissed as a convenient excuse. Source code, model weights, and training information can contain commercially valuable knowledge. Poorly designed access rules could create opportunities for theft, cybersecurity failures, or demands from governments whose motives have little to do with consumer protection. But the industry's list also reveals how much the technology has moved beyond the language written into the agreement. Article 1916 expressly covers source code and algorithms expressed in that code. It does not expressly name AI model weights or training data. Those are not interchangeable pieces of an AI system. Source code defines operations, model weights encode learned parameters, and training information can reveal how a system was developed and what kinds of data shaped it. Treating all of them as one protected object may simplify a lobbying argument, but it does not solve the legal question. A revised agreement would need to specify what information regulators can request, for what purpose, and under which confidentiality protections. This matters because examining source code alone may not explain why a modern AI model produced a particular result. Two systems can run on similar code while behaving differently because of their weights, data, fine-tuning, tools, or deployment settings. Regulators asking for the wrong technical artifact could receive access on paper and still learn very little. The debate is therefore not only about secrecy versus transparency. It is also about whether trade language written for conventional software can support meaningful oversight of systems whose behavior emerges from several interacting components. Consider a model used to screen job applicants, influence insurance decisions, or speak with a person in distress. A regulator may want to test the system, inspect documentation, review training practices, or examine evaluation results before opening a narrow enforcement case. A company may reasonably ask who will see that material, how it will be stored, and whether a foreign authority could use it for another purpose. Those questions cannot be answered by choosing one side's slogan. They require a defined access process. Schakowsky's office also said technology companies and trade groups have spent roughly $100 million opposing AI regulation in recent years. The figure was drawn from outside analysis cited by the lawmakers, not from a government audit. It should therefore be treated as an advocacy estimate, not an independently verified total. Even with that limitation, the political point is clear. AI policy is being shaped not only through highly visible hearings and domestic bills, but also through technical submissions to trade officials. Those submissions matter because international commitments can influence what national regulators are able to require later. The lawmakers asked Greer to provide information by August 5th about industry influence on the USMCA negotiations. A response could clarify which companies or associations met with officials, what changes they requested, and whether the administration is considering new language. Until that response or proposed text becomes public, claims about the final policy remain unproven. That uncertainty is important. A letter is not a new rule. An industry submission is not an adopted negotiating position, and neither side has shown the public final treaty language that would resolve the dispute. Still, the scale surrounding Chapter 19 explains why this obscure argument deserves attention. A March 2026 viewpoint published by Brookings, written by the head of the Mexican Association of the Information Technology Industry, estimated that North American cross-border digital trade exceeds $1.5 trillion. The same piece said small and mid-sized firms represent more than 98% of enterprises in the region, and proposed a trilateral AI governance framework focused on risk classification, transparency, and accountability. Because the author represents a technology industry association, that proposal should be understood as an industry viewpoint published by Brookings, not as a neutral government finding. But the figures illustrate the reach of the digital rules. Any change affects an ecosystem far larger than the handful of companies dominating the AI debate. For a small Canadian software provider, a Mexican business adopting an American AI service, or a US developer selling across the region, inconsistent national demands can create real costs. One shared framework could reduce that friction. The danger is that harmonization can work in two directions. It can establish a common floor for accountability, or a common ceiling that prevents any country from demanding more. That is why the wording of the exception matters more than the political labels surrounding it. An access rule that is too narrow may leave regulators unable to evaluate emerging risks until a specific case already exists. A rule that is too broad may allow authorities to demand sensitive technical material without a defined need. The serious policy question is how to create early oversight without turning regulatory access into routine technology transfer. There are at least 4 safeguards worth watching. First is the trigger. Does an authority need an investigation, inspection, examination, enforcement action, or judicial proceeding, as the current text provides? Or could a risk assessment, audit, certification process, or supervisory review also qualify? Second is scope. Would access cover source code only, or also model weights, training data documentation, evaluation results, system logs, and safety testing? Each category presents different regulatory value and commercial risk. Third is custody. Who can inspect the information? Where can it be stored? And what penalties apply if it is leaked or used beyond the authorized purpose? Confidential access is credible only when those protections are enforceable. Fourth is necessity. Regulators should be able to explain why a requested artifact is relevant. In some cases, independent testing or structured documentation may reveal more than millions of lines of code. In others, technical access may be essential to verify a company's claims. These safeguards offer a better framework than asking whether source code secrecy is simply good or bad. Secrecy protects legitimate intellectual property. It can also obstruct accountability when the threshold for scrutiny is badly designed. Both functions can exist at the same time. The wider lesson is not that a trade agreement has secretly replaced every domestic AI law. National legislatures and regulators still have their own authority, subject to their laws and international commitments. The lesson is narrower and more consequential. Trade rules can shape the boundaries within which future AI oversight operates. That makes this a test of institutional design, not proof of a conspiracy. The evidence so far establishes three things. Lawmakers are pressing for broader regulatory access. Industry groups are pressing for stronger protection of AI-related technical information. And the existing USMCA text already contains both a general protection and a regulatory exception. What remains unknown is the most important part: the language negotiators may actually adopt. Watch the August 5 response, any proposed revision to Article 1916, and whether model weights or training information appear in the text. Then, look past the promises and examine the trigger, scope, custody rules, and safeguards. The future of AI accountability will not be decided by one dramatic letter, but it can be changed by technical language that few people notice until regulators try to use it. That is why this trade clause matters. Not because it proves that companies have escaped oversight, and not because every demand for access is automatically justified. It matters because North America is deciding where protection of an AI system ends and legitimate scrutiny begins. Facts over fear.